Lena Vance stepped off the crystalline shuttle and onto the shimmering platform of Murda, the jewel of the Stellan cluster. The planet seemed to pulse with life. Golden skies arced overhead, and the distant hum of energy resonated through the floating city's glimmering spires. To most visitors, the alien beauty of Murda was overwhelming, but Lena felt strangely at home. Her role as humanity's ambassador had taken her to countless worlds, but Murda's vibrant energy called to something deep within her. The Murdans, an advanced and harmonious species, were fascinated by humans. To them, humanity was an anomaly, fragile yet resilient, logical yet driven by emotions that defied reason. It was those emotions, particularly joy, that earned Lena her nickname, the Happiness Lady. Her ability to foster peace and cooperation in even the most contentious environments was renowned across the galaxy. Today, though, Murda seemed unusually tense. As Lena entered the Grand Concourse, where alien diplomats and Mirdan officials mingled in their daily routines, a buzz of unease filled the air. Ambassador Vance, a melodic voice greeted her. Lena turned to see Arahel, a senior Mirdan counselor whose luminescent skin flickered with shades of green and gold, colors of worry. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. We face a crisis." "What's happened?" Lena asked, her tone calm but laced with concern. Arahel gestured for her to follow. They ascended a spiraling walkway that offered a panoramic view of the city. In the distance, Lena saw the massive crater on the outskirts of Murda's capital, its edges glowing faintly with an iridescent light. 3 days ago, during the starfall bloom, a fragment of a dying star fell to Murda, Arahel explained. "At first, we believed it to be a harmless anomaly, a cosmic gift. But its energy field is unlike anything we've encountered. It amplifies emotions in those nearby, causing extreme reactions." Lena's brow furrowed. "Amplifies emotions? How?" Arahel paused, as if choosing their words carefully. "Our people are struggling. Small disagreements have escalated into violent outbursts. Others have succumbed to despair so deep that they've become catatonic. And yet, for some, the fragment has heightened joy to the point of euphoria, rendering them incapable of rational thought." Lena studied the glowing crater. "You've tried to contain it?" "We've quarantined the area, but the energy field is expanding. We fear the entire city will soon be affected. If this continues, our society could collapse under the weight of unchecked emotions." Lena felt a chill run down her spine. The situation was dire, and it was clear why they had called for her. Humanity's deep and often tumultuous relationship with emotions had, over centuries, forced them to develop methods of coping, understanding, and channeling those feelings. Perhaps her unique perspective could offer insight. "Take me to the fragment," Lena said. Arahel hesitated but nodded. "Very well. But I must warn you, its effects are unpredictable." The crater was a stark contrast to the pristine beauty of the city. Lena stood on its edge, staring at the fragment, a jagged, crystalline mass pulsating with an inner light. The air was heavy, charged with an energy that seemed to seep into her very being. As she approached, a wave of emotion hit her. Memories of her childhood flooded back. Her mother's laughter, the warmth of the sun on her face during carefree days. But just as quickly, the memories shifted. The grief of losing her family in a tragic accident years ago consumed her. Tears welled in her eyes, unbidden. "Lena, are you all right?" Arahel's voice snapped her back to the present. She wiped her eyes and nodded. "It's overwhelming. But I think I understand now. The fragment wasn't just amplifying emotions, it was reflecting them, feeding off the feelings of those around it." Lena could sense an intelligence within the energy, a subtle but undeniable presence. "This isn't just a piece of a star," she said quietly. "It's alive." Arahel's luminescence shifted to pale blue, shock. "Alive? That's impossible." "No," Lena insisted, stepping closer. "I can feel it. It's trying to connect with us. But it doesn't understand the consequences of what it's doing. It's like a child crying out in the dark, desperate for someone to listen." Arahel remained silent, their gaze fixed on the fragment. "We need to communicate with it," Lena continued. If we can understand its purpose, we might be able to help it and stop the chaos it's causing. Erhol's colors flickered uncertainly. The Council believes destroying it is the safest course of action. And risk losing a sentient being? Lena challenged. There's another way, but I'll need your trust. The Mirdan counselor studied her for a long moment before their colors shifted to a tentative green. Very well, but we must act quickly. The city won't endure this much longer. As Lena turned back to the fragment, a quiet determination settled over her. Whatever this entity was, it was her responsibility now. The fate of Murda, and perhaps the fragment itself, depended on her ability to bridge the gap between their worlds. For the first time in years, Lena felt a flicker of fear, but she pushed it aside. There was no room for doubt. She would find a way to bring light back to Murda, no matter the cost. The research chamber was quiet, save for the faint hum of energy radiating from the crystalline fragment. Lena stood at the center of the room, her gaze fixed on the object suspended in an energy containment field. Around her, a team of Mirdan scientists and empathic alien researchers busied themselves with data streams and energy readings, their movements purposeful but tense. It's beautiful, Lena murmured. The fragment pulsed rhythmically, its light fluctuating in time with her own heartbeat. She could feel it reaching out, brushing against her mind like a whisper carried on the wind. Beautiful, perhaps, Erhol said, standing nearby, but also dangerous. Our instruments show the energy field expanding. Soon, it will reach the city's outskirts. Lena nodded but didn't reply immediately. She was focused on the sensation emanating from the fragment, a mix of longing and confusion that resonated deeply within her. It's trying to communicate, she finally said, her voice steady. It's not just amplifying emotions, it's absorbing them. That's why it feels so intense. It's reflecting our own feelings back at us. Magnified, Erhol's bioluminescence shifted to a skeptical amber. You're saying it feeds on emotions? Lena turned to face the counselor. Not in a parasitic way. It's more like it's searching for connection. It's alone, scared, and doesn't understand what it's doing. One of the researchers, a tall insectoid being named Koresh, clicked their mandibles. This aligns with our findings, Ambassador Vance. The fragment exhibits behavior consistent with sentient thought, though its processes are vastly different from biological minds. Lena took a deep breath. We need to establish a two-way connection. If we can communicate directly, we might be able to help it and stabilize the energy field. Erhol's colors shifted to deep green, a signal of doubt. The Council is growing impatient. They've already prepared contingency plans to destroy the fragment if the situation worsens. Lena frowned. Destroying it won't solve anything. It'll only release the energy violently and cause even greater destruction. Trust me. I can do this. Erhol hesitated but finally nodded. Proceed. But be cautious. Lena sat cross-legged on the floor, just outside the containment field. Closing her eyes, she let the fragment's energy wash over her, immersing herself in its ebb and flow. At first, it was overwhelming, a torrent of emotions that threatened to drown her. But as she focused, she began to distinguish patterns within the chaos. Flashes of loneliness, images of swirling stars, and an aching sense of loss. She spoke softly, her voice calm and steady. I can feel you. I know you're scared. I'm here to help. The fragment's light flared, and Lena's mind was flooded with a kaleidoscope of sensations. Joy, sorrow, hope, despair. She saw fleeting images of vast celestial fields, companions of light drifting together, and then the crushing emptiness of isolation. You lost them, didn't you? Lena whispered. Your family, your people. You're alone. The fragment's energy pulsed in response, a wave of sorrow that brought tears to her eyes. But within that sorrow, Lena sensed a flicker of something else. Trust. It's all right, she said gently. You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together. As Lena opened her eyes, the room was silent. The fragment's light had dimmed slightly, its energy field stabilizing. Erhol approached cautiously. What happened? They asked. Lena stood, her expression resolute. It's sentient, and it's grieving. It came here seeking solace, but it doesn't know how to coexist with us. If we can guide it, we can save it, and ourselves. Arahel's colors shifted to a thoughtful blue. And if we fail? Lena's gaze returned to the fragment. Then we'll have to make a choice. But for now, we owe it a chance to be understood. The fragment pulsed faintly, as if echoing her resolve. The road ahead was uncertain, but Lena knew one thing. This wasn't just about Murda anymore. This was about forging a bridge between the unknown and the familiar, no matter how fragile it might be. The room was bathed in a soft glow as Lena sat alone, her fingers pressed to her temples. The connection she had forged with the fragment, Selûne as she had named it, was growing stronger, but it came at a cost. Each interaction left her drained, as if pieces of her own emotions were being drawn into its vast, uncharted consciousness. You're carrying too much, Selûne's essence seemed to whisper, though no words were spoken aloud. Through their link, Lena sensed its curiosity and concern. You're right, she murmured to the empty room, but I can't let go. Not yet. She closed her eyes, allowing Selûne's energy to pull her deeper into its memories. It was like falling through an endless ocean of stars. Images flickered in her mind, glimpses of Selûne's existence before the starfall bloom. It had once been part of a celestial collective, vast and harmonious, drifting through the universe in symphony. But then came the collapse. One by one, its companions dimmed and faded, leaving Selûne adrift, desperate for connection. You're grieving, Lena said aloud. I know that pain. The fragment's energy pulsed, resonating with her words. Suddenly, her own memories surged forward. She was 10 years old, standing in the rain, staring at the wreckage of the shuttle that had taken her parents. The grief hit her like a tidal wave, sharp, raw, and unrelenting. You're holding on to loss, Selûne's presence echoed in her mind. Why? Lena clenched her fists, tears streaming down her face. Because if I let it go, I lose them completely. Grief is all I have left of them. The fragment's energy shifted, rippling with confusion and sorrow. But it blinds you. It dims your light. For a moment, Lena was silent. Then she exhaled deeply. Maybe you're right. But it's not that simple for us. Humans don't just feel, we carry those feelings. Let them shape us. Sometimes they make us stronger. Through their bond, she sensed Selûne's tentative understanding. Show me. The next day, Lena gathered a diverse group of Murdans, humans, and other species in the central plaza of the city. Each individual had been affected by Selûne's energy field, their emotions amplified to extremes. Lena encouraged them to express what they were feeling, through art, music, or simply speaking their truths. The plaza became a symphony of raw emotion. A Mirdan sculptor shaped towering figures of light, representing the ebb and flow of grief. A human musician played a haunting melody, weaving sorrow into beauty. Even Lena joined in, sharing the story of her parents and the strength she had found in their memory. Selûne's energy pulsed above them, absorbing the outpouring of emotion. But this time, it didn't amplify or distort it. Instead, it stabilized, resonating in harmony with the crowd. You see, Lena said softly, her voice carried by the wind. We're not just defined by our pain. We can transform it into something meaningful. Selûne's energy flared brightly, a burst of gratitude and understanding. As the sun set over Murda, Lena sat at the edge of the plaza, watching the fragment glow steadily in the distance. Arahel approached, their bioluminescence shifting to a serene gold. The energy field has stabilized, they said. You've done it, Ambassador Vance. Lena shook her head. Not just me. All of us. Selûne needed to see what we're capable of. Arahel studied her for a moment. And what now? Is this sustainable? Lena's gaze remained on the fragment. Not yet. Selûne's energy is still fading. We need to find a way to keep it alive without overwhelming the city. But at least now we understand each other. For the first time in weeks, Lena felt a flicker of hope. Selûne wasn't just a threat, it was a partner. And together, They would find a way to ensure neither of them had to face their grief alone. The chamber where Selûne rested was quiet, save for the soft hum of its energy. Lena stood at the edge of the containment field, staring at the fragment's glow. It was dimmer now, flickering weakly like a candle in the wind. The outpouring of emotions from the plaza had stabilized it temporarily, but it was clear to Lena that Selûne was dying. "It can't sustain itself," Koresh said, their mandibles clicking softly. "Without a continuous emotional resonance, its energy will collapse." Erihel, standing nearby, turned to Lena. "The council still favors termination. They believe it's the safest option for Murda." Lena clenched her fists. She had fought to buy time for Selûne, but that time was running out. Destroying the fragment would eliminate the threat, but it would also extinguish a sentient being's life, a life that had shown it could grow and learn. "There has to be another way," Lena said firmly. Koresh hesitated. "There is one possibility. Selûne could be tethered to a living consciousness, someone who could provide a stable emotional anchor. The bond would allow it to survive, but it would permanently connect the two minds. The anchor would bear the emotional weight of Selûne's existence." Lena understood the implication immediately. The bond would require someone strong enough to endure the emotional strain, someone willing to give a part of themselves to keep Selûne alive. "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. "No," Erihel said sharply. Their bioluminescence flared with alarm. "The risk is too great. You've already sacrificed so much for us." Lena turned to face them, her gaze steady. "This isn't just about Murda. Selûne is a reminder that even in the darkest void, connection can bring light. If I can give it that chance, how can I refuse?" Erihel's colors shifted to deep blue, the hue of reluctant acceptance. "Then we will help you prepare." The process began at sunrise. Lena sat in a meditation circle surrounded by Mirdan scientists and empathic healers. Selûne's fragment hovered above her, its faint light pulsing weakly. As the connection formed, Lena felt a flood of emotions wash over her. Grief, loneliness, hope, and longing. Selûne's presence filled her mind, vast and overwhelming. But instead of pulling away, she embraced it, letting her own emotions flow freely in return. "I'm here," she whispered. "You're not alone anymore." Selûne's light grew brighter, steady and warm. Lena felt their bond solidify, a connection that went deeper than thought or feeling. For the first time, Selûne's presence didn't feel overwhelming. It felt like companionship. When the process was complete, Lena opened her eyes. The chamber was filled with a golden light, and the fragment no longer pulsed erratically. Instead, it emitted a steady, harmonious glow, its energy no longer dangerous but calming. Erihel approached, their bioluminescence glowing in shades of hope. "You did it. The energy field has stabilized completely." Lena stood, her body trembling but her spirit resolute. "Selûne and I are connected now. It'll take time to adjust, but together, we can ensure Murda remains safe." The plaza outside erupted in celebration as news of Selûne's transformation spread. The once feared fragment had become a symbol of unity, its energy radiating peace and inspiration across the city. That evening, Lena stood on a balcony overlooking the capital, the faint glow of Selûne within her mind like a comforting presence. "Thank you," Selûne's voice echoed softly in her thoughts. "For what?" Lena replied, smiling faintly. "For teaching me the reason for happiness. It's not just the absence of pain. It's the connection we share with others." Lena's chest swelled with emotion. "You taught me just as much. We're better together." As the stars lit up the sky, Lena knew her journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, she felt whole. Together, she and Selûne would bring light to a universe often lost in darkness.